You beautiful bastards, hope you've had a fantastic Tuesday. Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show, and let's just jump into it. And the first thing we're going to talk about today is our D-bag of the day, Trevor King. Trevor is a now retired police officer, and this story actually starts late 2014. And King at that time was working with the Atlanta Police Department, and at the same time was working loss prevention with Walmart. And the whole crazy situation we're about to jump into starts with confusion about a tomato. This tomato incident, if you will, took place at Walmart while King was working his loss prevention job. And here's what happened. King and another loss prevention associate see a man on a camera weigh a tomato, put it in his bag, and stuff the bag in a satchel. That man then proceeds to walk to the back of the Walmart, around the store, and then towards the door. And that guy is a man by the name of Tyrone Carnegie. Turns out what actually happened was Tyrone was in the Walmart because he thought he was overcharged for tomatoes he had already purchased, and he returned to weigh them and then speak to customer service. So he wasn't actually stealing, he was double checking. But King and the other loss prevention associate, they don't know this. They assume that he is stealing, so they go to cut the man off and ask him about the tomato. Carnegie claims he asked King, "What's up, chief?" when he was stopped at the door. King allegedly asks where he was going. Carnegie says, "I'm going home." King claims the man was asked repeatedly to head to the loss prevention office. Carnegie refuses to comply. And in a disputed piece of testimony, King claims that Carnegie said, "Do what you've got to do," to the officer. And then things escalate. And there's video of this. You see King using his baton to beat the leg of Carnegie to get him on the ground, and then he does so afterwards. There's only around 7 seconds between approaching Carnegie and him beating him. As far as why he used the baton instead of, let's say, like a pepper spray, he said he didn't want to harm bystanders. And as far as the beating, during that beating, King broke Carnegie's leg. There were bones sticking out of the skin, and he ruptured an artery. Now here's where it goes from bad to worse. King fishes the receipt for the tomatoes out of Carnegie's pocket, but still has him arrested. And while he was at the hospital for his injuries, he was chained to the hospital bed and then sent to jail for 3 days. Now after all of this happens, the charges end up being dropped. Soon King is forced into retirement. And after that, criminal charges were filed against him in addition to a civil suit. And during King's trial in 2017, there was a mistrial, but it was actually a good mistrial. During the trial, he admitted to telling 2 different stories in police incident reports. And reportedly, prosecutors did this to add more charges against King, specifically falsifying a police report. Which, fun fact, it was revealed that King had a history of forging documents in testimony, once in 2001, then in 2012, and now. And in December of 2017, he was found guilty on 2 felony counts: willfully using unreasonable force and falsifying a police report. And after all of that, King yesterday was finally sentenced to 5 years in prison. And I will say, it is good to see some justice. Also, the situation's not over. Carnegie is suing King, the Atlanta PD, and now is planning on filing a civil suit against Walmart. And we'll have to wait to see what happens there, but the main point of this story is Trevor King is our douchebag of the day. Then in quickie, apparently it wasn't enough news. Let's talk about Equifax. They have now revealed new information around that massive breach. Remember the one, Equifax? The one where around 146.6 million Americans' personal information, including their social security numbers, were just vulnerable, exposed. Well, apparently in addition to that, 56,000 driver's licenses, passports, and other IDs were stolen too. Equifax giving this table to Congress to show how people were affected, and wow. Also, for those of you that you can't wait with this story for people to be held accountable, sorry, because the other update to this story is that last week Equifax had a vote, and Equifax shareholders voted to re-elect 3 people who served on the company's technology committee at the time of the breach. So there was that. But from that, I want to share some stuff I love today, and today in Awesome, brought to you by the brand new DeFranco Now app. One of the features I miss the most from old school YouTube is video responses. But I also knew that even if we could get video responses back today, I would want them to be better. And that's actually why we jumped into DeFranco Now. It's a place where our community can have video to video conversations. And how we're launching it is just kind of the base level minimum use case version of the app. I'll be posting some stories and topics there that I want you to sound off on, and not just reply to me, but then respond to other people that are responding, have a real conversation. 2, I'm going to use it for the Q&As that we're going to be bringing back. And 3, when you make your own account, you get your own channel. So I'd love for you guys to pose questions, talk about news, interact with one another there. But like I said, this is just kind of the base level stuff, and a lot of where we're going, we have ideas, but a lot of it will be based off of how users actually use it. The main point there, if you want to download it now, you can either search DeFranco Now in the App Store, you can go to DeFrancoNowApp.com, and if you're on Android, I'm sorry, it's in the works. Also, a note I want to hit on here is DeFranco Now is obviously very focused around our community. If you're a creator, you're looking for new places to post, you're looking for brand new opportunities, I want to tell you about Snack, because DeFranco Now is actually powered by our partner Snack. Also, for transparency's sake, I'm an advisor to Snack. They also have their own iPhone app, web platform. You can sign up, start a channel. They have a partner program where they're locking in CPMs, they're building gifting. It's really kind of, once again, the ground floor. And their whole mindset is just having a place that's creator-centric. It's about connecting people to their audiences. And of course, it sure doesn't hurt that they're building it in a way where people can be supported, even if they're not necessarily advertiser-friendly. And so I'll include a link down below so you can download that app too. And the first bit of awesome today is just a slow clap to the people at Vogue for being smart enough to have the fantastic Liza Koshy do their Met Gala coverage. I've said it before and I'll say it again, even though I know some of you disagree with me, which is fine. The internet has tons of opinions. Liza Koshy is the now and future of YouTube and internet popularity bleeding into the mainstream. That said, 2017, 2018 have shown me that a lot of the people I like turns out not great people, so it's a possible thing. And the next year it's going to come out that Liza Koshy stabs homeless people just to feel something. But I'm hoping that's not the case. Side note, Liza, get back to posting on your main channel, please. I know you're very busy and you still post on your second channel, but I'm bored. There are only so many Deezus and Miro videos, and I'm just running out of stuff to watch. Then in other awesome, but hopefully it doesn't suck, awesome, Bill and Ted 3 is officially happening. Then we had the man that inspired an entire generation of vloggers, Ze Frank, back to posting videos, this time giving us true facts about carnivorous plants. Then we had a TED Ed video on can you solve the false positive riddle, and we have the honest trailer for 50 Shades Freed. And if you want to see the full versions of everything I just shared, the secret link of the day, anything at all, links as always are in the description down below. And then let's talk about now former New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman. And the reason we're talking about Schneiderman is last night the New Yorker released accusations from 4 women against him. Of the 4 accusers, Michelle Manning Barish and Tanya Selvaratnam went on the record while the 2 others did not. And a big part of why these women said they came out that they were speaking against Schneiderman is that they saw him out there speaking out against the Harvey Weinsteins of the world. They saw him becoming an advocate for women, but they say they know a completely different side of him. Manning Barish saying you cannot be a champion of women when you are hitting them and choking them in bed and saying to them, you're a fucking whore. Selvaratnam saying this is a man who has staked his entire career, his personal narrative on being a champion for women publicly, but he abuses them privately. He needs to be called out. Manning Barish saying that about a month after they became physically involved, he started to get abusive. She describes one situation where they had been drinking, that he called her a whore, slapped her in the face, saying when she tried to fight back, Schneiderman held her down using his body weight and began to choke her. She ended up freeing herself. She was crying. And she says he accused her of scratching him and told her, you know, hitting an officer of the law is a felony. And a big note that Manning Barish really hits on here. And she said, this was under no circumstances a sex game gone wrong. This did not happen while we were having sex. I was fully dressed and remained that way. It was completely unexpected and shocking. I did not consent to physical assault. She says she tells her friends about this situation. The New Yorker confirmed that with her friends. But still, she ends up going back, tries to make the relationship work. It's on and off. And during this relationship, she says Schneiderman does continue to slap her during sex, also saying that he would constantly try and get her to drink, that he would also try and get drugs from her. He would constantly criticize how she looked, what she ate. She ended up losing 30 pounds during their relationship, recalling a time where she says he grabbed her face and said, if you ever left me, I'd kill you. And we also see similar accusations with Selvaratnam, saying he had said he would have to kill me if we broke up on multiple occasions. He also told me he could have me followed and could tap my phone. She also claims that Schneiderman slapped her, saying it was at first as if he were testing me, then it got stronger and harder. It wasn't consensual, this wasn't sexual play acting, this was abusive, demeaning, threatening behavior. Also saying he would choke her, spit on her. Also saying he would insist she call him master and referred to her on multiple occasions as his brown slave, that he would repeat that she was his property. And for the sake of time, I'm talking about the accusations from the 2 main faces of this story, but I'll link down below so you can see the entirety of the story. Main point, all these accusations come out in the New Yorker, and just 3 hours later, Eric Schneiderman announces his resignation, saying in a statement, it's been my great honor and privilege to serve as Attorney General for the people of the state of New York. In the last several hours, serious allegations, which I strongly contest, have been made against me. While these allegations are unrelated to my professional conduct or the operations of the office, they will effectively prevent me from leading the office's work at this critical time. I therefore resign my office effective at the close of business on May 8th, 2018. Then, in a separate statement on Twitter saying, in the privacy of intimate relationships, I have engaged in role-playing and other consensual sexual activity. I have not assaulted anyone. I have never engaged in non-consensual sex, which is a line I would not cross. We also had Jennifer Cunningham, Schneiderman's ex-wife, who has worked as his political consultant, saying in a statement, I've known Eric for nearly 35 years as a husband, father, and friend. These allegations are completely inconsistent with the man I know who has always been someone of the highest character, outstanding values, and a loving father. I find it impossible to believe these allegations are true. And after Schneiderman's resignation, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office said that they were opening an investigation into the allegations against him. And as far as reactions on Twitter, unsurprisingly, conservative Twitter was having a field day. Kellyanne Conway, quote, tweeting an Eric Schneiderman tweet in the past, where Schneiderman said, no one is above the law, and I'll continue to remind President Trump and his administration of that fact every day. To which Kellyanne tweeted, gotcha. Trump Jr., quote, tweeting a Schneiderman tweet from the past, where Schneiderman said, without the reporting of the New York Times and the New Yorker and the brave women and men who spoke up about the sexual harassment they endured at the hands of powerful men, there would not be the critical national reckoning underway. A well-deserved honor. Trump Jr. saying, self-awareness level 0 or substantially less than that. And Dana Lash, quote, tweeting another Schneiderman tweet, where Schneiderman said, sexual assault survivors, what happened to you is unconscionable. We have have your back and we are fighting for you. To which Dana said, literally fighting women is not the same as fighting for women. And people also dug up an old Trump tweet. It's from back in 2013 where Trump tweeted, Weiner is gone, Spitzer is gone. Next will be lightweight AG Eric Schneiderman. Is he a crook? Wait and see. Worse than Spitzer or Weiner. So this had a lot of people questioning, did Trump know specifically about this? Is that what he was referencing there? Was this kind of a New York secret? And one of the things of note in this story are the specific allegations about choking. While Schneiderman was working as a New York state senator, he actually passed legislation that gave harsher sentencing to choking of all types. The bill made life-threatening strangulation a grave crime and it criminalized less serious cases involving, quote, an intent to impede breathing, as misdemeanors punishable by up to a year in prison. And at that time he said, I'm just sorry it took us so long in New York State to do this. And that's interesting to me because it does seem like a common thread with abusers and hypocrites that we've seen in the public before. It seems like a common thread in stories like this. By being the greatest champion, the loudest voice on a topic, that's the perfect cover. For example, Tim Murphy, pro-life politician, pressuring his mistress to get an abortion. Or, I mean, that's another story that we've talked about multiple times where you have the pro-family, very, very against gay rights and gay people politician, and it turns out they're just on the down low. And so the question I want to pass off to you here is, do you have that same mindset? When you see someone very, very outspoken on a topic, does it make you question them? Or no, is that far too cynical? Also, what do you think about it when a public figure resigns or backs away from something and they're maintaining their innocence, but they're like, it's too much of a distraction? You know, like we're seeing here with Schneiderman, as we saw with Ronnie Jackson a few weeks ago. Do you see that as a legitimate or a BS response? And the last thing I want to talk about today is the Iran deal. And to start things off, let's try to answer the question of what is the Iran nuclear deal, which is actually important because according to new surveys that have come out, a lot of people don't know much about it. So kind of the TLDR of this deal is it is an international agreement signed by 6 world powers and Iran, and it steeply limits Iran's nuclear enrichment and research in exchange for the removal of harsh economic sanctions against Iran. The deal was signed in 2015, went into effect in 2016, has a 10-year life, and requires verification by a third party, the International Atomic Energy Agency. And also, when I say steep limitations, I mean steep limitations. For example, for 15 years, one facility in Iran can enrich uranium up to 3.67%. And for comparison's sake, weapons-grade enriched uranium is around 90%. Iran was also prohibited from having more than 660 pounds of enriched uranium, which was a 97% decrease. Prior to the deal, Iran had around 20,000 centrifuges at these facilities. With the deal, Iran could only have 5,060 of these centrifuges, and they were older, less efficient models. And it looked like, at least publicly, that Iran was complying, the rest of the countries with their sanctions, they were complying. But then on April 30th, in walks in Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He gives his presentation in English rather than Hebrew. He opens the presentation showing Iranian leaders saying they do not and did not have a nuclear weapons program. And he then says Iran lied.
Iran lied.
He then has this dramatic unveiling of what he said amounted to 55,000 pages of documents, 183 CDs, alleging that Iran hid an atomic archive of documents on its nuclear program. The files reportedly detailing a program known as Project Ahmad, which was in operation between 1999 and 2003. Netanyahu believing that the program continued in secret. But a big thing of note here is that Netanyahu provided no evidence that Iran had actually violated the nuclear accord, which went into effect in 2016. Experts and diplomats saying that the information presented provided some further detail on Iran's nuclear program, but provided no evidence of a breach on the agreement. And that's why it was widely considered by the international community as intelligence theater, and that Netanyahu's true audience was Trump. And as far as why it would be aimed at Trump, he had a self-imposed deadline of May 12th to make a decision on whether or not the US would be pulling out of the Iran deal. Following Netanyahu's presentation, the International Atomic Energy Agency released a statement, and on the past that Netanyahu talked about, they said although some activities took place after 2003, they were not part of a coordinated effort. The agency also assessed that these activities did not advance beyond feasibility in scientific studies and the acquisition of certain relevant technical competences and capabilities. And then adding, the same report stated that the agency had no credible indications of activities in Iran relevant to the development of a nuclear explosive device after 2009. We also had the EU foreign policy chief saying the IAEA has published 10 reports certifying that Iran has fully complied with its commitments. And then all of that brings us to President Trump, who hasn't hid the fact that he is not a fan of the Iran deal. He decertified the deal in October, and although in January he did grant sanction relief to Iran, that was, quote, only in order to secure our European allies' agreement to fix the terrible flaws of the Iran nuclear deal. And an important note here, because once again there have been a lot of people talking about Netanyahu, whether Iran is actually complying or not. Trump has several problems with the deal that don't have to do with Iran complying or not. He has a problem with some of the terms of the deal expiring in 10 and 15 years. He believes it would allow Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon anyway. He believes it fails to address Iran's ballistic missile program, and he believes that it fails to address Iran's regional influence and sponsorship of militant groups. And there is also kind of this general mindset that they are getting a lot more than we are getting out of it. And today, President Trump finally officially announced his decision.
I am announcing today that the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal. In a few moments, I will sign a presidential memorandum to begin reinstating U.S. nuclear sanctions on the Iranian regime. We will be instituting the highest level of economic sanction. Any nation that helps Iran in its quest for nuclear weapons could also be strongly sanctioned by the United States.
And during this announcement, he also hits on a few other notes. He mentions Netanyahu's presentation.
Last week, Israel published intelligence documents, long concealed by Iran, conclusively showing the Iranian regime and its history of pursuing nuclear weapons.
Once again, I think it is incredibly important to point out that they're talking about something from 15 years ago. But it should be noted that Iran reportedly moved the atomic program documents in 2017. And what we're talking about with the Iran nuclear deal, once again, signed in 2015, went into effect in 2016. But that said, he still hits on the note that it doesn't even matter if Iran is complying.
The agreement was so poorly negotiated that even if Iran fully complies, the regime can still be on the verge of a nuclear breakout in just a short period of time.
He also then mentions monitoring mechanisms that he feels are inadequate.
The deal's inspection provisions lack adequate mechanisms to prevent, detect, and punish cheating, and don't even have the unqualified right to inspect many important locations, including military facilities.
On this note, the president is kind of right and wrong. There are some limitations on what can be inspected for non-nuclear military facilities. But as far as the nuclear sites and other facilities, there's full and unrestricted access. But following all of this, the president then signed a memorandum to reinstate sanctions on Iran's nuclear program. Now, as far as when the sanctions will go into effect, what the sanctions will be, that we will learn soon. There could be a delay of 5 or 6 months before sanctions went into place. And even though Trump made this announcement just as we were finishing today's show, obviously there have been a ton of reactions. Some like Netanyahu and Lindsey Graham praising the president for this move. Others, including our European allies, criticizing the move. But one of the most meaningful responses, especially since the question right now is, okay, well, what happens next, came from Iran's president, who, according to the AP, said if negotiations fail, Islamic Republic will enrich uranium more than before in next weeks. And personally, for me, my response to this is I'm torn. I'm not a fan of Iran's government, and kind of what the deal in general did was it pushed the threat down the road. It could also be kind of viewed as a sort of nuclear blackmail. But also, on the other hand, as far as public information goes, it looked like it wasn't something that we were having to address right now. And with the president pulling out in this manner, it does raise the question of how can our allies or anyone else that we could potentially make a deal with trust us? That if at any time there's a change of administration or what have you, that America might just pull out. And for me personally, I need to think on it more and also see what else happens. Things are ramping up, and we will have to see what happens next. But of course, with this being the Philip DeFranco show, that's the story. And now I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts about the move President Trump made today? What do you think will happen next? I'd love to know your thoughts in those comments down below. And that's where I'm going to end today's show. And remember, if you like the video, you like what I try and do on this channel, hit that like button. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, make sure notifications are on. Also, if you missed yesterday's Philip DeFranco show, you want to catch up, click or tap right there to watch that. Or if you want something a little bit lighter, you can watch the behind the scenes vlog. But that's it, of course. As always, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you tomorrow.